This is the most extensive video on cassava farming you have ever seen. After watching this video, you will learn every single bit of information you need to start a successful commercial cassava farming business. If you are a small-scale farmer or a farming enthusiast or even an investor seeking to start cassava farming business in Nigeria, this training video is for you. You know, jumping into any agribusiness without the right knowledge and information is the best way to set yourself up for failure. And that is why detailed tutorials like this become very important. I would advise that you get some book and a pen and write some tips down, and I promise it will help you so much. But there is a bad news though. This video is going to be a little longer, and if you don't have the attention span to stick through it, I'm sorry, but you're probably not going to make it. Anyways, straight to the point. Why cassava farming? Is it profitable in Nigeria? Well, there are two things that determines the profitability of every business. The first one is market demand. Is there a high demand for the business's products in the market today? And two, is there a future growth potential for the market? If the answers to these two questions is yes, then that's an opportunity. The level of demand for a business's products and services is crucial. High demand typically translates to more sale opportunities and higher revenue potential. Now, is that the case for cassava farming? Well, let's look at the statistics. Research reveals that the demand for cassava and its components in Nigeria is high in the domestic economy. However, the supply has been unable to meet the demand. Nigeria would need about 28.3 million metric tons of fresh cassava roots planted annually on about 1.2 million hectares of land to meet the country's demand for cassava. So yes, we can confirm that there is demand for cassava in Nigeria right now. But is there a future growth potential? Well, Data Bridge Market Research analyzes that the Nigerian cassava market, which was over $126 million in 2022, will reach over $163 million by 2030 and is expected to undergo a cumulative annual growth rate of 3.21% during the forecast period. So again, we can confirm that there is a future growth potential for the cassava market. Looking at this signal and the fact that Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava across the globe, we are left with zero doubts about the profitability potential of commercial cassava farming in Nigeria. Now that we know this, let's go ahead and discuss the step-by-step process of making tons of money with cassava farming business in Nigeria. The first step is by far the most important aspect of starting an agribusiness, but that is what most people forget about. This is really what makes the difference between a farmer who eats their own produce and gets zero money from their investment versus a farmer who builds businesses around their farms and make tens and thousands of dollars from it. If you will really make money from your cassava in Nigeria, your marketing strategy should be your key focus. I have grouped all the possible ways you can sell your cassava in three major categories: companies, mini companies, and micro businesses. Let's look at companies. There are several companies that buy cassava in Nigeria for processing finished and semi-finished products. Some of these companies are Nestle, Unilever, and Nigerian breweries. Those are the top players in the cassava industry, and most of the cassava produced in the country end up with them. But I must mention that due to their scale of operation, they are sometimes not willing to buy from individual farmers. However, you can still get your cassava to them through the next category I will talk about: mini companies. There are also mini companies that buy cassava not for processing finished goods, but for much simple transactions such as retailing and exporting. This category is where most small-scale farmers will get their customers. Some of these mini companies are Sultry International and Matna Foods. These companies purchase cassava from local farmers, processes it into an industrial-grade starch, and supply to companies such as Nestle and Nigerian breweries. So, if you can work with these companies directly as a farmer, great. But if you can't, these mini companies will still get your cassava to them. And the last one I'll talk about is micro businesses. These include small businesses that use cassava in their daily operations, usually uses cassava directly to produce for consumers. This can include businesses that operate gari processing units, school feeding programs, and market women that resell cassava produce to households. As a small-scale farmer, you can get to do business with countless of these business entities. Now that we have identified potential markets, let's look at one of the most critical aspects when it comes to finding markets, and that is understanding customer needs and preferences. The reason why this is important is that just because you found, let's say, Unilever as a potential buyer does not necessarily guarantee they will actually work with you. To improve your chances of landing a deal with them, you must know exactly what cassava varieties and quality standards they want. I think that's the reason why big companies don't buy from individual suppliers, is that smallholder farmers don't consider quality standards that the companies are looking for. So let's say you intend to sell your cassava produce to Sultry International. What standards are the company looking for? We know that Sultry International uses the cassava to produce starch for big companies. So which cassava variety is best for this purpose? And let's say you're also thinking of selling to gari processing businesses. These businesses have the type of cassava they prefer. Mostly they look for the varieties that give more of the gari flour. Now, how do you actually know their requirements and standards? Well, the most effective way is to go to them and discuss with them. After knowing their quality standards and requirements, go ahead and pitch your intent to grow cassava and supply to them. Since you know exactly what they want, they will most likely love to work with you. By the way, this is my personal advice. While you are busy thinking of who will buy your cassava produce, do not forget that you can also use your own farm produce to produce finished and semi-finished products that will even make you more money. Remember that the business or the company buying your produce only add a little value to your produce and sell it at higher prices. For example, let's look at Kivo 3-in-1 Gari Mix. It is just your own cassava that the company has processed into gari and added sugar and granules, packaged nicely and selling for profits. So instead of supplying your cassava to gari processing personnel or others at lower prices, you can process your own cassava into gari, package it, brand it, and sell at higher prices. Today, because of social media, you can sell your own produce not just in your home country, but internationally as well. I know that not everyone has the equipment and the resources to process their farm produce into finished products. So I am not saying you should not sell your produce to others now. I am just saying that while you are currently selling to others, you should have a growth mindset that at a point in time you will expand your business and potentially make more money. Okay. Note that you don't plant anything until you have secured some customers. In that way, you know what varieties and quantities you are growing. But after learning these so far, if you don't know how to do this next step, you have still not done anything. And that is how to actually grow and produce a lot of healthy cassava tubers that generate you more money. I have divided that step into 3 simple steps to help you understand it. And it starts from acquiring the best varieties of cassava cartons, choosing and preparing the land, and best farming practices to set you up for success. Let's start off with acquiring seeds and varieties. In my previous video on cassava farming, I got a lot of people asking me in the comment section about this step. John Ajim asked me, how can one get the best cassava sticks and the name? So I will address that in this section. It's another important area you should pay attention to because making the wrong decision at this point can ruin your business. For example, not all cassava varieties thrive in Nigeria's climate. And also your target market may require a specific type of cassava. Growing any other variety will negatively impact your sales except you plan on exporting your produce to other markets, which I'll talk more about in a bit. Let's discuss some common cassava varieties in Nigeria, how to identify them, and their pros and cons. The most popular variety in Nigeria today is the TME 419. It is a multi-resistant variety that is resistant to cassava diseases and pests, has very high yield and starch content, and has great culinary aptitude, which makes it a favorable variety in West Africa. To answer the question, what cassava variety is best for production and processing of gari? Well, the TME 419 is the best for processing gari due to its high starch content and quality. The yield of this variety is the highest, yielding up to 36 tons per hectare with up to 40% dry matter content. But it matures in 12 months period, and that is the only drawback with this type. A year to mature is so long compared to other varieties which can be ready for harvest within 3 to 6 months. This variety grows up straight. It has a narrow green shiny leaf and grows to an average height of 4 meters with a light brown stalk. The tuber has white or light brown colored flesh and a cream brown rind. The tuber has a medium neck and the internodes are short and the diameter of the stem is medium to large. Now let's move on to the TMS 50395. This is also one of the high-performing cassava varieties developed by the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. It is well known for its resilience, high yield potential, and disease resistance. The tubers are usually large and starchy, providing a good yield for cassava flour or other processed products. This cassava variety is bred for resistance to major cassava diseases including cassava mosaic disease, cassava bacterial blights, and the cassava anthracnose disease. This variety matures in 12 months or so and performs well in a variety of soil types. This variety has a high starch content, making it particularly useful for industries that process cassava into products like cassava flour, starch, and ethanol. TMS 50395 exhibits dichotomous branching, which means that the main branch divides into two branches, giving it a balanced and moderately branched structure. This helps it maintain a stable plant architecture, which can be important for field management and wind resistance. It also helps suppress weed growth and retain soil moisture. The stem surface is typically smooth and the plant tends to have moderately thick stems. The leaf stalks are often reddish or purple, and the skin of the tuber is usually rough and light brown to cream colored. This variety is generally considered a low cyanide variety of cassava, including its roots and leaves. While cassava leaves do contain cryogenic glycosides, this variety particularly has been bred for lower levels of these compounds, making it safer for consumption. The next variety I'll talk about is the TMS 98. This variety is known for its ability to withstand drought. It is classified as a stay-green cassava variety, which means that even in the dry season, it retains its leaves and keeps growing. It does not drop its leaves even at the peak of the dry season. This variety also has a very high yield with high dry matter content. It has bigger root size than the TME 419. Physically, it features tall, erect stem with moderate branching. Its leaves are green with broad lobes, and it develops thick roots with smooth brown outer skin. The flesh of the root is white, making it ideal for food processing into products like gari, fufu, and high-quality cassava flour. And the last variety I'll talk about is what is commonly known as sunshine. It is by far the best for processing yellow gari and other biofortified food products. This is because this variety is biofortified with high provitamin A carotenoids developed to combat vitamin A deficiency in regions where cassava is a staple food. Sunshine has yellow roots and good dry matter content. There are several other varieties with their advantages and disadvantages. According to your target market and the purposes you are growing for, choose the one that best suits your needs. Now, even if you didn't pay attention from the beginning till now, this next step is what you should forget about everything else and take note of: how to choose the right land that sets you up for success. The ideal soil for cassava is loamy or sandy loam, which provides good drainage and aeration. The soil should be nutrient rich with high levels of potassium and moderate levels of nitrogen and phosphorus, and should have adequate organic matter to enhance fertility. Cassava prefers a pH range of 5.5 to 7 and requires well-drained soil to prevent waterlogging, which can lead to root rot. If this sounds intimidating, don't worry. I will show you how to test for these things in a bit. In terms of climate, cassava thrives in warm temperature ranging from 25 degrees Celsius to 29 degrees Celsius, though it can tolerate up to 35 degrees Celsius. And Nigeria's mean annual temperature is approximately 27 degrees Celsius, with average monthly temperatures ranging between 24 degrees Celsius in December, January, and 30 degrees Celsius in April, which means that Nigeria's climate is perfect for growing cassava, and it's no surprise it is the world's largest producer of cassava. Full sunlight is essential for optimal growth, and moderate to high humidity levels are favorable, though cassava can also grow in moderately humid conditions. The area at which you choose your land should also have a source of water for irrigation should the need arise. And now, to prepare the land. Regardless of where your land is or what type of land you choose to do your business, you should go through these preparation stages to make sure it's ready for cultivation. Start by collecting soil samples from different parts of the field. dig into a depth of 15 to 20 centimeters to get a representative sample. Getting about 10 samples from different parts of the field is optimal. Now mix these samples together to form a composite sample and take it to any soil research institute or laboratory for testing. There are several of these labs everywhere in Nigeria, such as Soil Science Society of Nigeria in Abuja and Jarima Scientific Laboratory in Lagos. You will get a test report that looks like this. The lab will test for various parameters including pH levels, essential nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur, as well as micronutrients such as zinc, boron, copper, and manganese. Also, the test will measure organic matter content, which influences soil fertility and structure, and determine soil texture by analyzing the proportions of sand, silt, and clay. Once you receive the lab report, let the laboratory staff interpret the results for you and understand the nutrient status and the pH of your soil. You can also consult with your local agricultural extension service personnel to help in making sense of the data and provide recommendations for soil amendment. Based on what your lab report says, apply the necessary fertilizers and amendment to correct any nutrient deficiencies and pH imbalances. Adding animal manure can also improve soil structure and fertility in the long run. You have to get this done and amend the soil as needed 2 weeks prior to planting your cassava. This will help you get the best outcome possible from your cassava business. Now, we are at the most important section of this video. Here is the farming practices that will set you up for success. I will start with preparing your planting materials. After getting your cassava cuttings, preparation starts with selecting mature stems that are 8 to 12 months old, as these will provide the best cuttings. Cut the stems into pieces that are approximately 15 to 30 centimeters long, ensuring that each piece contains at least 1 or 2 nodes, which are crucial for sprouting. Once cutting is done, allow the pieces to dry in a shaded area for 2 to 3 days. This drying period helps to reduce the risk of rot by allowing the cut ends to callus over. For additional protection, dip the base of the cuttings in a fungicide or insecticide solution if needed to prevent fungal infections or pest infestation. When planting cassava, proper spacing is crucial for optimal growth. Space the rows 1 to 1.5 meters apart to provide enough room for the plant to spread out. Within each row, place the curtain 0.8 to 1 meter apart to ensure adequate space for each plant to develop fully. For planting depth, insert the cuttings into the soil at a depth of 5 to 10 centimeters, making sure the nodes are facing upwards. The top of the curtain should remain above the soil surface. To plant, dig holes and place the cuttings in them, and then cover the cuttings with soil. Gently tamp down the soil to remove any air pockets and ensure good soil to cutting contact. Let's look at fertilization now. Fertilization and pest control are critical aspects of successful cassava farming, ensuring robust crop growth and high yields. Effective fertilization strategies begin with soil testing to determine nutrient deficiencies and tailor the application of fertilizers accordingly. Cassava requires balanced nutrition with essential nutrients including nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Typically, a combination of organic and inorganic fertilizers is recommended. Organic matter such as compost or manure can improve soil structure and fertility, while chemical fertilizers can address specific nutrient needs. It is essential to apply fertilizers at the right time and in appropriate quantities to prevent nutrient leaching and environmental degradation. And pest control. Pest control in cassava farming involves integrated pest management strategies to minimize damage and ensure healthy crops. The key pests include cassava mealybugs, cassava whitefly, and cassava spider mites. Monitoring fields regularly for early signs of pest infestation is essential. Additionally, cultural practices such as crop rotation, maintaining proper plant spacing, and removing infected plants can reduce pest pressures. Using resistant cassava varieties and practicing good field sanitation further support effective pest management. If you do this, you would not have any problem with pests in your cassava farming business. What about weeds? Weeds compete with cassava plants for essential resources such as nutrients, water, and sunlight, which can significantly impact yields. There are two feasible weed management methods in Nigeria: manual weeding and the use of herbicides. Manual weeding, though labor-intensive, is the safest way to remove weeds from cassava farms. There is no risk of harmful chemical effects on your farm. If manual weeding is not possible in your situation, herbicides can be used strategically, and their application should be carefully managed to avoid damaging the cassava plants. And the last thing I'll talk about under the farming practices is irrigation. One of the questions I get frequently is irrigation necessary in cassava farming? Well, irrigation is equally important for cassava, particularly in regions with inconsistent rainfall. Cassava is a drought-sensitive crop, and rainfall variability is a significant challenge in Nigeria. According to the Nigerian National Agricultural Quarantine Service, irrigation can increase cassava yields by up to 300%. And also, statistics from the International Crop Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics show that irrigated cassava farms in Nigeria have a higher yield and better water use efficiency compared to rain-fed farms. Irrigation also reduces the risk of crop failure and improves the overall profitability of cassava farming in Nigeria. Drip irrigation is an efficient method that delivers water directly to the plant root zone, minimizing water wastage and reducing weed growth. In areas where drip irrigation is not feasible, you can use sprayer-type irrigation systems, though it's water demanding. Proper irrigation practices help ensure that cassava plants receive optimal amount of water throughout their growth cycle, which is essential for maximizing yield and maintaining plant health. And before we end this presentation, listen up, because there are some challenges in cassava farming business you really should have solutions to, or the very least be aware of. And the first one is access to finance. You see, as a small-scale farmer, mostly you will not have access to the necessary capital to invest in better seeds, fertilizers, and processing equipment. No banks or government bodies are willing to invest in you, at least not for now. This is why it is very important to secure your own funding and not rely on things like government fertilizers. The other problem is low yield. Nigerian cassava farmers often produce less than 10 tons per hectare, while other countries are yielding up to 30 tons per hectare. This is just because of the use of outdated and disease-prone seeds. However, this is not something that cannot be fixed. There are some improved and virus-free cassava varieties already in Nigeria. It is your part to adopt these varieties to improve your chances of success. But if you paid attention, you realize that there is something I didn't tell you at the start of this video. Everything that I have just told you is completely useless if you don't know how to actually plan and write a business plan for your business. I'll cover that in the next video I post on this channel. Subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss that one when I upload it. Thank you for watching and happy farming.